So enjoying the new kitabs. It's more teaching of what is Mishkat. No new discussions. The same fiqh, abhas, everything, isn't it? That's why we told you if you study your Mishkat Sharif well, there may be a few discussions here, there, but 90% of the discussions. "90% of the discussions are covered in the Mishkat Sharif. If you done your Mishkat Sharif well, the Doraya Hadith will be easy, isn't it? No. The honest experience is what? Bismillah, read it, you listen.
فصل في قيام شهر رمضان يستحب أن يجتمع الناس في شهر رمضان بعد العشاء فيصلي بهم إمامهم
خمسة مفعول
خمس ترويحات خمس ترويحات كل ترويحة بتسليمتين. Okay,
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yustahabu, yeah, the author says it is mustahab. But okay, let me translate. It's mustahab that the people gather in the month of Ramadan after Isha namaz, right? فَيُصَلِّي بِهِمْ, the Imam will read with them خَمْسَ تَرْوِيحَاتٍ. خَمْسَ تَرْوِيحَاتٍ is if you make a salam after every 4 rakats, then there will be, then we say 4 rakats is a tarweeha, isn't it? Am I right or wrong, Luqman? You will read with them خَمْسَ تَرْوِيحَاتٍ. So that means you will read 20 rakats. Right? كل ترويحة بتسليمة. Every ترويحة with a salam. Right? Gee? What you got there? Subhanallah. See what is my kitab. That's why I'm spelling a little bit. I'm struggling a little bit. Really, بتسليمة. بتسليمتين. Yeah, perfect. That's for safe. Huh? That was, I was struggling a bit. Jazakallah for that. Actually having difficulty making sense of the ibarat because it wasn't making sense. So first thing, okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yustahabbu. Yeah, he says mustahab. But actually, like we mentioned with you before, it is not mustahab. It is sunnat. The Tarawih namaz is sunnat mu'akkada. Remember this here. Like how you get the four before Zohar, etc., etc., is sunnat mu'akkada. And remember, the law is if you leave a sunnat mu'akkada continuously out without a valid excuse, you become sinful. Remember that. This is important. Don't look at the word sunnat and sunnat mu'akkada and you think, I can just leave it out. Listen nicely, listen well. Yusuf, if you leave a sunnat mu'akkada out continuously without a valid excuse, every day you're leaving out your Zohar sunnat or sunnat after Zohar without a valid excuse, you become sinful, right? Right, Jazakallah for that, right? So yustahabbu, this is the opinion, this is the ibarat of check there. Is it Kuduri's ibarat also ibarat, is it? They normally have their own ibarat, is it? Imam Kuduri's ibarat? They don't tell you in your kitab who's ibarat, is it? Remember that the overlying text here in Hidaayah Sharif is either from Imam Kuduri or is it from Jami al-Saghir, ne? And then the one that's not overlying is the explanation of him, Sahibi Hidaayah, you will know that, ne? Right. So it's Imam Kuduri. So yeah, the fatwa is not on Imam Kuduri's opinion here that it is mustahab. I tell you the correct. Or maybe, or you can say like this here, he's using the word mustahab in opposition to farz. It's not farz, but it's good to do. So sometimes that is what happens. Also the fuqaha, they'll use a word, but not in the technical sense of the word. Like I told you, remember we told you, if you look at the word nawafil, if you look at nawafil, it is not used in the technical sense of the word nafal. It's used just as opposed to farz, anything which is not farz and wajib. Are you with me? So same thing here also. Sometimes if you can say when Imam Kuduri said it is mustahab, then we'll say it means it is not farz. But it's not mustahab in the sense that you know, if you want to do it, you can do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It is sunnat mu'akkada. And sunnat mu'akkada, the law of sunnat mu'akkada is that, like I told you, if you leave it out constantly without a valid excuse become sinful. And then the next thing is to make it in Jama'ah is sunnateh mu'akkada al-kifaya. That means if everybody in Utrecht, for example, everybody decide now, they say we're not going to make Jamaat, each one is going to read by their own house, then each one will become sinful for abandoning the Jamaat. Are you with me? So, يستحب أن يجتمع الناس في شهر رمضان. It is mustahab. I told you there what the law is. I gave you in detail. Either we'll say that Imam Quduri means mustahab as opposition to farz and not compulsory, or maybe this was his opinion, but the fatwa is not on that. If we say he meant in the technical sense of the word mustahab, then the fatwa is not on, right? في شهر رمضان بعد العشاء after Isha فيصلي بهم إمامهم 5 ترويحات. The Imam will read with them 5 tarawiyah. Tarawiyah is 4 rakats, right? كل ترويحة بتسليمتين. So every 4 rakats with 2 salams, right? That makes sense. I got my تسليمتين, right? Then ويجلس بين كل ترويحتين بقدار ترويحة ثم يوتر بهم. Then he will sit between every. So remember, he will sit between every 2 tarwihas, right? Right? It means between the 4th rakat and the 8th rakat, between the 8th rakat and the 12th rakat, between the 12th rakat and the 16th rakat, and then between the 16th rakat and the 20th rakat. So the original sunnah is to sit the amount of a complete tarwiyah. Now, obviously, in today's day and age, this is impossible because already the Tarawih is so long, people are not coming. If you're going to do that, that means Tarawih namaz is going to be double the time. Tarawih namaz, so you can just pause briefly, and there is an interesting argument for you. There's a masnoon dua, there's a dua mentioned in Allama Ibn Abidin's book, the main fatwa book of the Hanabis, Subuhun Qudusun. But actually that hadith, that dua got no basis, because remember Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't regularly read Tarawih namaz with him. That's why, so although you'll see maybe in some of our fiqh books or in some of our Hanafi books, etc., that this dua is mentioned, but Mullah Ashraf Ali Tanwi says, I read Durood Sharif between. So if the Imam pauses a little bit, so don't firstly, I view the Imam, I say to you, don't make this very, very long, because it's not very emphasized. And secondly, especially in the summer months, and then also a few minutes you sit, you can recite Durood Sharif, right? Carry on reading. Then, so generally, listen nicely. Generally, if you are able to wake up, you are a regular tahajjud guzar. You're not a student of deen that is studying your books till late at night time, but you sleep early and generally you wake up, then it's better for you. We discussed this before. Do you read your Twitter namaz after your tahajjud namaz, just before the entry time of Fajr? Né? You know that. But in Ramadan, there's an exception to the rule. In Ramadan, even if you are a regular tahajjud guzar, whatever, still it's better in Ramadan to do what? To read your witr in Jama'at. Obviously, this is for the men. This is for the men, right? So it is better to, and for the woman, if you accustomed to waking up for 99.9% of the time you're waking up for tahajjud namaz. Obviously in Ramadan you have to wake up because you are on a fast. Nobody wants to miss their sehri, especially now in South Africa. We're going to come to long days. Allah Ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. I think in the UK and they're going to have, I remember when we went Jamaat to the UK, then it was in December. We broke our fast, I think it's like 4:30, something like that. 4:30, 4:45 was the latest. Easy days. It's just like having a late lunch, Allah Ta'ala make it easy for us in South Africa. We're going to have long days, especially those who got sickness. Allah Ta'ala make it easy, make special dua, inshallah. All right? Make dua for me also. I can manage it, inshallah. Make special dua, inshallah. So anyway, as I said, especially with these long days, like in the UK and that you get very, very long days, very, very long days. Then now imagine you want to practice, but it's in a kitab that you must sit for the same tarawiyah after every 4 tarawiyahs. You're going to change the people. Some places in the UK, the tarawih is so late in the northern hemisphere that people, they stay after Isha one time for Fajr. They stay after Isha one time for Fajr. Yeah, if you have been reciting Subuhun, Qudusun, that's fine, no problem. But as I said, there's no real basis for it. But I'm just telling you, Mala Ashraf Ali Tanwi, a great Mujaddid, he says he used to recite Durud Sharif. So whatever you're reciting Subuhun, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not proven from the Sunnah. Because Nabi Sallallahu didn't read very regularly the Tarawih namaz to such an extent that Sahaba Ikram learned this dua for him, from him, right? So, so yes, maybe like in winter, or maybe in the Haramain Sharifain, although they don't delay, but any day even worse than that, they even reduce it to 10 rakats down. So what can you expect from them? Anyway, ذكر لفظ الاستحبابي. So this is now not the overline ibarat, ne? So that show you this is now Sahib Hidayah's tashri. He say that although Imam Quduri he mentioned lafzul istihbab, but wal asahhu anna sunnatun, and the correct opinion is sunnat. Another principle I want to teach you: generally, most of the times in the Hanafi books, when you get a what mutlaq was sunnat, just get sunnat, then it refers to sunnat muakkada, right? So the more correct thing is sunnat, right? كذا روى الحسن عن أبي حنيفة, like that also Imam Hassan. Now you remember we normally only we hear about Imam Yusuf and Imam Muhammad, the writing from, but Imam Hassan was also one of the students of Imam Hanifa, maybe the less. And anybody who compiled Imam Hanifa's opinions besides the Zahiru Riwayat, this is called the Nawadir. What is it called? And so normally when you something is contradictory appears in the Nawadir to the Zahir Riwayat, give more precedence to the Zahir Riwayat, because the Zahir Riwayat, it is compiled by as Imam Muhammad, who has spent more time with Imam Abu Hanifa. Simple, just to understand this, for example, Ismail is or your classmate here also, right? So if you say something, and you say, I said, Aadiel said this, and Ismail said, no, Aadiel said this, who are you going to believe? Who are you going to believe, him or Ismail? Who are you going to believe? Who you believe? If he say, I say something, he say, Aadiel said it's like this, and Ismail say, no, it's different, who will you believe? Why will you believe him? Because he's here every day. Ismail is not here every day. It's not most the same thing. I'm giving you a principle of iftah now. What am I giving you? There's a principle of iftah of the MUFTI course. When there's a contradiction between the Zahiri riwayat and the Nawadir riwayat, you give preference to the Zahiri riwayat because as Imam Muhammad was third in command, he was third in charge. His compilation carries more weight because he spent more time with Imam Hanifa. So sometimes when we don't define opinion in the Zahiri riwayat, there's nothing mentioned, then you give preference on the Nawadir. And also sometimes there's extenuating circumstances. There's a need to veer away from. There's actually a whole book written. Actually, I don't know if I bought it, but it's a book written, a whole thick book like this here. In every place where fatwa has been given on the Nawadir and not the Zahir. And the reason why, so the default ruling is fatwa will be first on Imam Abu Hanifa's qawl from the Zahir. Then it will be on Imam Yusuf's qawl on the Zahir. Then it will be on Imam Muhammad's qawl. And then after it will go to the Nawazir. That is the order. But you see sometimes even here in the Kitab, sometimes the fatwa is not on Imam Yusuf's qawl. Fatwa is not on, so the fatwa is not Imam Hanifa's qawl. The fatwa is on Imam Abu Yusuf's qawl. Sometimes the fatwa is on Muhammad. But that is where the later ulama came based upon need and premised. They changed. But that's a default ruling in the madhab. That is the default ruling in the madhab. Right? So that you'll do more of if you do the iftah, insha'Allah. So, wal asahhu, so you can see here, annaha sunnatun, and I told you, sunnat, in the Hanafi book, whenever you see sunnat, means sunnate, mu'akkada, when it's general, right? Kadha rawal Hasan an Abi Hanifata, and so you can see here, the fatwa is on, like I just gave you an example of, sometimes the fatwa is not on the Zahiri, right? Sometimes the fatwa is on the Nawadir, so this could classically be one of those examples where the fatwa is on the Nawadir. And so that's one. And another person, لأنه واظب عليها الخلفاء الراشدون. The Khulafa al-Rashidun, in particular, not as Abu Bakr, because as Abu Bakr, his khilafat was very, very short. and his Khilafat was very much one of turmoil. Remember, the Arabs from the Bedouins, the outlying areas, etc., they took a chance, right? They took a chance in the time of, just change to the right page, Mark. They took a chance. They would not want to pay zakat, etc. So Abu Bakr spent most of his time bringing political stability to the Muslim world. So it was Hazrat Abu Bakr, Hazrat Umar that could now pay attention and to codify and ratify all the stuff, right? So لأنه واظب عليه الخلفاء الراشدين. You know what I mean? But I just told you yesterday, I mentioned to you, or was it last week, that, or in the Mishkat Sharif lesson, etc. One of the ways of finding what was the last preferred action of Nabi Sallallahu is what? Yusuf, sometimes you look at the hadith and the hadith are contradictory. Sometimes you look at the hadith and the hadith are contradictory. So like this hadith say like this and that hadith say, maybe Nabi Sallallahu done something in the beginning of Islam and to the latter part of Islam he changed it. How do we find out what was the last preferred action of Nabi Sallallahu? This is one of the ways. You look at what the action of, how do you find out what was the preference of Nabi Sallallahu? What was dear to Nabi Sallallahu? You look at the actions of the Khulafa al-Rashidin because they spend the most time with Nabi Sallallahu and they know far better what was the last sunnah and the preferred sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You understood that? So لأن واظب عليها الخلفاء الراشدون, and in particular I thought it means Umar, Uthman, Ali, they were very punctual. When Nabi sallallahu and Nabi sallallahu also explained the reason بين بين العذر في تركه المواظبة. He explained the reason why he was not so punctual with it. Why? وخشية أن يكتب علينا. It was out of fear that it will become compulsory. Why? Look, Nabi Sallallahu knew that in the time of the Sahaba Ikram, they were very desirous of ibadat. That even if Nabi Sallallahu wrote 20 rakats, hypothetically he read 40 rakats, even if he read 60 rakats, Sahaba Ikram were totally enamored with Nabi Sallallahu, they would have read it with him. And obviously, you know, when Nabi Sallallahu reads it continuously, what happens? If Nabi Sallallahu had to read Tarawih Namaz every year continuously, every night, without leaving it out, what would happen? It become compulsory, because how do we determine Sunnat Mu'akkada is Sunnat Mu'akkada? Because Nabi Sallallahu done it regularly, you understand what I'm saying? That's how we got it. So if Nabi Sallallahu had to read it, he said, Nabi Sallallahu never left this out. So imagine 20 rakats was compulsory. What great part of the ummah would have been sinful for leaving out. People can't even read their faraz namaz. They will leave out their tarawih namaz. So out of compassion, Nabi Sallallahu left it out. Okay, carry on, read the next text, inshallah. You don't have a sunnah to fi al-jama'atu. Read it, Luqman.
قال والسنة فيها الجماعة لكن على وجه كفاية حتى لو امتنع أهل المسجد كلهم عن إقامتها كانوا.
Yeah, you got kullu much. This will make sense. حتى لو امتنع أهل المسجد كلهم. See, that's also was a bit spinning there by that one, but makes sense. Maybe this is كلهم.
كانوا مسلمين.
Right. Same thing there. They give you the explanation of what Sunnat Mu'akkada al-Kifaya means. If everybody refuses to do it, everybody becomes sinful. Right? And that's Jamaat. But if some people do the Jamaat and other people don't do the Jamaat, then so this is just these some masail, you know, you do in the kitab is mimma yu'lam wa la yufta bihi. What does it mean? Okay, not la yufta bihi, but it is known, but you don't tell the people. If you tell all the people, hey, you know, you must read Tarawih Namaz, you don't have to come to the masjid, you can visit by your house. So what's going to happen? People will say, okay, now I'm going to read by the house. And you know, when you do something by the house, what happens? Get delayed. That's why the ladies also have that difficulty, because they delay, and before they see the time is up and they never read it now, last minute they're rushing. So for the men, they got advantage. There's time is fixed, so they go to the masjid, they're going to read the masjid, you know you're going to read it, right? So was sunnatu fiha al-jama'atu. So the sunnat also, so for everybody sunnate mu'akkada to do it, but to make the jama'at is sunnate mu'akkada kifaya. Hatta law imtana ahlul masjidi kulluhum, if all the masjids they decide now we're not going to do it, and iqamatiya kanu musiin, all of them will be doing wrong. Asa'a yusi'u, they will be guilty of committing of shirking in a sunnate mu'akkada. Are you with me? The next ibarah also explains you what is سنة مؤكدة الكفاية. ولو أقامها البعض, if some people do it in Jamaat, فالمتخلف عن الجماعة, the person who doesn't do it in Jamaat, but he does it by his house, فالمتخلف للجماعة تارك للفضيلة, he is leaving out a very important fazilat, right? But he's not sinful. He's leaving out his fazilat, but let's carry on. And what's our proof to say that that you have to, that you, it's not faraz, or it's not sunnah mu'akkada to read it in jama'at, right? Because لأن أفراد الصحابة يروى أنهم التخلف, because it is narrated that certain individuals from the Sahaba Ikram, they made takhalluf, they read it by their house. So if it was sunnah mu'akkada to read it in jama'at, then certain Sahaba Ikram wouldn't have left it by his house. And here, in fact, in the Shara, they mention some names here, certain Sahaba Ikram that used to read the Tarawih namaz at home. And their proof, although the fatwa is not on this, their proof was this here, that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, read every salat of yours at home, save for the maktuba, the farz salah. So they say, see, this is also the, what you call it, this is also, it's not a maktuba salah, so you must read it at home. So there's still some people, I know, Mufti Hussain Kadodia, one of the Muftis in South Africa, they sell all of kitab. He was saying that there's one Arab alim, or Salafi alim, whatever. He used to read by the house. He used to read 8 rakats, and his 8 rakats used to be even longer than the 20 rakats that we read. But anyway, for us, that's their opinion, and maybe he's following that Sahaba. But for us, Hanafi Madhab, etc., the fazilat is reading it in Jamaat, and obviously in a masjid it's even better. But if there's no masjid in your area, then you're reading the Salah Khana, but obviously the masjid got the extra fazilat, right? So a person who don't read it in there, he will be sinful, right? Not sinful. You'll be leaving out, if you don't read it with Jamaat, you'll be leaving out a great virtue, right? Obviously, this refers to the men. We know for the woman, the general law applies. If you read a salat in your home, right, is the best, right? Carry on.
قال والمستحب في الجلوس بين الترويحتين مقدار الترويحة.
Right. We just discussed this here. The preferred thing is that to sit between the two tarwiyahs, that is 4 rakats, every 4 rakats, and the duration of another 4 rakats. So this means you're going to be, your salah is actually be double up, right? So if you can do it, mashallah, but if you can't do it, right, carry on. You don't have the وَكَذَا بَيْنَ الْخَامِسَةِ وَبَيْنَ الْوِتْرِ. Yeah. Right, and also between the fifth tarwiyah, that is the last 4 rakats, وَبَيْنَ الْوِتْرِ, and between the witr, because Ahl al-Haramain, what they used to do, they used to make another tawaf in between, right? And how long does a tawaf take about? But okay, those days maybe it wasn't so full like today, you know. It's only in the maybe in the last 100th century, maybe the last 30 or 20 years, and in particular in the last 5 years or 6 years, and it's become so busy. You know, before COVID, there were times when you go and to be quiet. I spoke to the taxi driver. He said, I tell him, now, when is the quiet time? He said, after COVID, when Haram was shut down, I mean, everything was shut down. After COVID, there's no more quiet time. It's busy right through the year. And even Merry Christmas is very, very busy. What do you mean? Like, he said, Merry Christmas time, both busy hai. Merry Christmas time, both busy hai. So what do you mean Merry Christmas is very busy? What Christmas has got to do with Umrah? See, Merry Christmas, both busy hai. I mean, that time of December, most of the world is on holiday. All the countries in the northern hemisphere and etc. So now obviously because the Muslim community is becoming more affluent, the Muslim community, if you just think a little bit, when you were a small child, if somebody was going for Umrah, it was a big thing. Hey, this guy went for Umrah. But nowadays, you see, hey, this guy's gone for Umrah, this guy's gone for Umrah, this guy's gone, he's coming back now. Anyway, carry on. So here they say, وَكَذَا بَيْنَ الْخَامِسَةِ وَبَيْنَ الْوِتْرِ لِأَهْلِ الْحَرَمَيْنِ. Right. وَاسْتَحْسَنَ الْبَعْضُ الْإِسْتِرَاحَةَ عَلَى 5 تَسْلِيمَاتٍ وَلَيْسَ بِصَحِيحٍ. Some ulama said, read it, they've considered good that al-istiraha to only sit after ala khamsi taslima, after 5 salams, walaysa bisahihin. That's not correct. It means you are going to make istiraha, right, after 5 what, or 5 salams is when? Huh? No, 5 salams is ala khamsi taslima, 5, yeah. So you must sit after 5 salams, right? Okay, so that's one opinion also, right? Get on.
يشير إلى أن وقتها بعد العشاء قبل الوتر.
You don't have the وقوله ثم يوتر بهم.
ثم يوتر بهم يشير إلى أن وقتها بعد العشاء قبل الوتر وبه قال إمام
Yeah. So this just some ulama is saying that you must read it after the witr. Some ulama say you must read, you can even read it before you read your Isha namaz. Listen nicely. Some ulama say it's a Qiyamul Layl. But remember, we, the Hanafi madhab, we say Qiyamul Layl and Taraweeh namaz is different. And this is a discussion that you covered in Mishkat. I don't know if you covered it in Mishkat. You will do Taraweeh namaz. Why we say Taraweeh namaz in Salatul Layl is different, right? And inshallah, you'll also do it maybe in one of your Dora kitabs. That Salatul Layl is different to Taraweeh namaz. So those ulama that say it is Salatul Layl, they say Salatul Layl you can read even before the Isha, so long as it is night time. But this is not the preferred opinion. Doesn't nicely to me. The preferred opinion for us is you can read it anytime Isha, even after your witr, but it's better to read it before your witr. So the fact that you can read after witr, what does this mean? This means, right, relevant. Say for instance somebody came late, right? He missed Isha namaz and he joined. Then he read his Tarawih namaz. He read his Isha namaz. Obviously, you can't read it without reading the Isha namaz. And he never make his rakats of the Tarawih namaz. Then he joined the Tarawih namaz and the witr. So after witr, he can make that rakats. You understood it? So he can't join the Tarawih namaz immediately. Why? Because if he joined the Tarawih namaz immediately, what will happen? He's reading it before Isha. And the preferred opinion in our madhab is what? It must only be done after Isha, right? So, well, asahu, that's why. So when you say asah, etc., that shows you there is ikhtilaf, right? وقوله ثم يوتر بهم يشير إلى أن وقتها بعد العشاء after Isha قبل الوتر before witr. وبه قال عامة المشايخ, most of our mashayikh say that there's a والأصح, but the correct is أن وقتها بعد العشاء إلى آخر الليل قبل الوتر. That the correct opinion is that its time is after Isha till Subuh Sadiq, قبل الوتر وبعده, before witr and after. So the ladies, even if they may be used to you reading their tahajjud namaz in their time, they can even read a witr just before, right? Why? Because لأنها نوافل سنة بعد الإشاء. Because why are we saying that you have to read it after the Isha, you can't read it before the Isha? Because this is a nafil that has been made mashru after Isha. It's a nafil for, it's not a nafil that has been established before Isha. It's not a nafil that has been established before Isha. That's what it's saying. لأنها نوافل, it's actually نوافل بغير منصرف مفاعل, right? لأنها نوافل, it is a nafil salah, right? Right? Sunnat بعد الإشاء, it has been made sunnat after Isha. Then, interesting thing here, Sahib Hidaayah is still commenting on the text of Quduri. What is Sahib Hidaayah doing? He's saying, وَلَمْ يَذْكُرْ, I'm just putting it from my side so you can understand. وَلَمْ يَذْكُرُ الْقُدُورِ قَدْرَ الْقِرَاءَةِ فِيهَا. Imam Quduri didn't give any guidelines with regards to what type of qira'at you will make in it, right? But وَأَكْثَرُ الْمَشَايِخِ عَلَى أَنَّ السُنَّةَ فِيهَا الْخَطْمُ مَرَّةً. But most of our mashayikh means most of the Hanafi scholars, is that it is sunnah to make a khatam. Why sunnah to make a khatam? Because remember I told you this when we discussed this in Aqidatul Tahawi. I told you we are the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What are the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is those people who believe in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, Yusuf? Maybe you weren't here for this, so pay attention. You believe in the Sunnah of Rasulullah and you believe in the Jama'ah. And who was the best Jama'ah of this ummah? Who was the best Jama'ah? Yusuf, who was the best Jama'ah? Still going to come. Who was the best Jama'ah of this ummah? Loud? I can't hear what you say. What is it? Who's the best Jamaat of this ummah? Yeah, who's the best Jamaat of this ummah? What's your Umar? What? No, yeah, I'm saying from within this ummah, who's the best Jamaat? Luqman, who's the best Jamaat? It's Sahaba Ikram and the Khulafa al-Rashidin in particular. So, that is why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in the hadith, Alaykum bi sunnati wa sunnati al-Khulafa al-Rashidin al-Mahdiyin. That hold firm to my sunnat and hold firm to the sunnat of my Khulafa al-Rashidin also. So we say, we say, this is our reasoning. It's most of the time when the Khulafa al-Rashidin, listen to this carefully, this will help you a lot in future. Most of the time, when the Khulafa al-Rashidin practice upon something, if you search hard enough, you will find a proof for it in the hadith. Because they knew the sunnah of Rasulullah. They knew the sunnah of Rasulullah. And then, sometimes you look and you see there's nothing in a hadith. You'll find there's nothing in a hadith, but you see that the Khulafa al-Rashidin practice upon this. Then too, we'll consider it to be a mashru part of Sharia. Why? Because, same reason I told you, who knew the Sunnah better? You that checked Bukhari Sharif, or the people who loved what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who knows the Sunnah better? And who knows the mansha? Mansha means like what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would want. Sometimes maybe he never implements something, but he would want something. Another classical example of that is like the woman, we say that the woman shouldn't go to the masjid. Who knows what the wish of Nabi Sallallahu would be better? Me and you that only read Bukhari Sharif, who can't even read Bukhari Sharif, or the people that love wrote Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam so many years. So that's why I'm telling you, sometimes you won't find a Sarih hadith, but you say that maybe the Khulafa al-Rashidin, they knew something that we don't know. Or maybe they knew what Nabi Sallallahu would want for this ummah. They were so jealous with regards to protecting the Sharia. Just an example for this. See, when as Umar saw there's a need now to compile the Quran into one. Quran was written before, but when so many Huffaz were killed in Yamama, in the Battle of Yamama, then he decided, hey, we must do this, we must compile. When he came to Abu Bakr, he said, كيف أفعل ما لم يفعل رسول الله. So how can I do something which Rasul never do? So what does that show you? That they were very, very particular about not doing anything that Rasulullah never do. They were very particular about it. So when they done something, they wouldn't do it out of their own. They wouldn't shoot from the pocket. They wouldn't shoot from the pocket. There must be some basis for it, right? So the fact, so that's why we're saying you read فَلَا يُتْرَكُوا لِكَسْلِ الْقَوْمِ. You won't just leave out the khatam because of the laziness of the people. So in other words, the qawm is young, you go to Huffaz, etc. Then you must make a full khatam. Yes, you don't have a hafiz that qualifies. The hafiz doesn't have a full beard. Or maybe you got a jamaat of old people that's different. Listen nicely. فَلَا يُتْرَكُوا لِكَسْلِ الْقَوْمِ. You won't leave it out purely because of the laziness of the people. Yes, the people got general uzr. Like, a person is genuinely, they're old, they're weak, they're frail, whatever. That's a different reason, right? So, we speak about the men in the masjid or the men in Jamaat, we must do full khatam, right? But the woman, obviously, by the house, if she's a hafiza, good, mashallah, but, right? بخلاف ما بعد التشهد من الدعوات حيث يتركوها. But they say, yes, after the tashahud, atahiyatu, the durud, and that you can leave out just to make it easy for the people. So you won't leave the khatm al-Quran to make it easy for the people, but you can leave the durud to make it sunnah to you. لأنها ليست بسنة, because that is not an emphasized sunnah to read the durud and etc. Yeah, it's just one ibadah for that, right? ولا يصلي الوتر بجماعة في غير شهر رمضان عليه إجماع المسلمين. And the next masla is this: you will not read the witr namaz in Jamaat besides the month of Ramadan. عليه إجماع المسلمين, and all the Muslimin are muttafaq upon this. Wallahu alam, Allah Ta'ala knows best. Okay, alhamdulillah, it brings us to the end of this particular bab. Allah Ta'ala give us the acceptance to understand, give us the acceptance to practice, and through the barakat of the Noor, Allah Ta'ala accept us and grant us complete shifa from all our illness. Allah Ta'ala accepts. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah bihamdika, la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allah Ta'ala. Subhanallah.